I think it may be, but we really don't know the answer to that yet. There's no question that the growth in the developing world will be a major challenge to achieving the climate change objectives that scientists and others have set out for us. But there is a possibility that that growth can be accommodated and eventually we will hit the requisite targets. But it'll take a good deal of international cooperation, some understanding of differentiated roles to accommodate that growth, and eventually probably a lot of technical change to lower the cost of running an advanced economy on less energy and less carbon. Well, I think that the components are probably pretty well understood, although they're not embodied in agreements. The advanced countries need to set aggressive targets, and the main purpose of that is not only reduction in energy and carbon intensity, but also the creation of incentives to create new technology over a period of time. The advanced countries need to be willing participants in some kind of cross-border mechanism in order to make sure that the mitigation that's actually undertaken is relatively efficient. And then the developing countries also have to agree to a monitoring system and to agree that they will graduate to advanced country status and accept all the responsibilities that then go with that. And they have to be active and aggressive participants in the adoption of energy and low carbon technology. Well, there's a process that's underway that many institutions, including business and non-governmental institutions that are involved in, that I think of as sort of general education. It's very difficult to take concrete steps in a world in which the population has very limited understanding of what these steps are supposed to accomplish. And so while there are setbacks in this, I think there's been major progress in the last 10 years on that front, thanks to the efforts of a lot of different organizations and people, including non-governmental organizations, educational institutions, and so on. And I think that sort of laid the basis for what we're seeing now, which is reasonably aggressive action at the levels of cities, states, countries, developing and advanced, to start to reduce their energy and carbon use. Now that hasn't turned into a global agreement yet, so people think, well, this has been a failure, but actually I think the progress is quite impressive at this stage for a complex problem, and I expect there'll be more progress in the future. Well, I think all the states and the private sector, businesses and consumers all have a role to play. It has something to do with it. It's a question of values, right? There's many areas of life in which people's values will determine what they do, and they can have a major effect on climate change. And there's no way to regulate that. On the other hand, governments have important roles to play in creating incentives, in stabilizing and determining price levels for energy and so on. And the private sector, of course, always has the primary responsibility for technological innovation in the right environment. So I'd say all of these entities have important roles to play, and one wouldn't want to write any of them out of the script, including especially the consumer. Yes, I mean, our institutional structures for dealing with both mitigation and adaptation, and they're both important, are underdeveloped. I think on the adaptation side, what we need is we need two things. We need an agreement that we are going to protect the most vulnerable people in the world from actual climate change in the form of financial support and help with adaptation. And And then we need institutions that are capable of implementing that commitment. There's a bit of a competition, going on over who's going to get that job. And there certainly is a kind of lack of clarity at this point. I mean, there have been some commitments made. They're probably not large enough to protect people. But I think that's, on the adaptation side, that's the main event. On the mitigation side, we're still searching for an institutional and collective decision-making process that actually works. And a lot of the discussion today is about that, but I don't think we've reached any concrete conclusions yet.